So I've been thinking about this topic, and I won't necessarily say that I'm fully ready to flesh it out. So forgive me if I start rambling, but yeah, I think it's a topic worth talking about. So the topic of today is incomprehensible input. Now, I know that if you've been in the language learning world here on YouTube, you would have seen many videos on comprehensible input, which of course means using materials, which of course means using materials that are at your level to learn Japanese or, learn from input, from intaking. And that's kind of what the incomprehensible input is, but slightly different. And I got the idea from George Tremblay at From Zero because he was talking about incomprehensible input. And I think he was kind of thinking about how it may be a good idea for language study. And so I kind of took his idea and I thought about it for myself. And I kind of started implementing for myself the idea of incomprehensible input. And so essentially, what I see it as is interest based materials. And that's basically it. So you go to videos in your target language that, of course, you're interested in because it's talking about topics that you're interested in. And you may not understand because, of course, we're not talking about comprehensible input where you understand the majority of what's being said. We're talking incomprehensible where you may not understand the majority of what's being said. But it's an interest, which means you're going to keep coming back and you're going to try to implement and you're going to work your way through the process of getting through it. And so that's kind of what I see it as when it comes to language learning. And the example I can give right now is the fact that I'm interested in crocheting. And I wanted to do a project because I saw this really cute purse. And the video course is in Japanese. And so for a while, you know, I first put it in my watch later list because I thought I really like that project. I want to do it. But I didn't do it right away because, of course, it's frightening doing something in Japanese. And I'm not very good at doing things that frighten me. So, yeah, it took a while. But in thinking about the incomprehensible input, in thinking about, you know, stepping outside of myself and taking risks and really doing what I want. Because for me, a lot of this was motivated by getting out of those kind of norms, you know, yeah, those kind of norms, meaning the way that others structure their learning. Because I do believe that learning is a process that is individual. And not everyone is going to appreciate the same lessons or the same methods or the same anything. They're just not because we're all individuals. I acknowledge I like to bulldoze my ways through things, and that's kind of who I am. So the harder it is, probably the more interested that I am because I'm having to piece things together. So taking it back to this topic, once I decided that, you know what, that is really who I am, let me just take the risk and let me do the purse. And so I did because those English subtitles did not help at all. So I could only rely on her voice. I could only rely on the action of her hands. I could only rely on, you know, that whole package. Because there were times where I had to turn off the subtitles because it just wasn't helpful at all. But I got the first done. And it was through not comprehending anything pretty much that she said. But by the end, you could pick up more. So yeah, I mean, I should say I did one project, but technically I did two projects with her channel because I did a smartphone kind of bag first because it was the pattern that she was using for the purse. And so I wanted to understand it. So I figured, let me do a smaller project, get used to listening in Japanese and then do the bigger project. And it worked. And so I'm probably going to do other things because, like I said, it's interest based. And I also like videos about planning and videos about project reviews and, things of that realm because I'm I'm learning how to do self-planning. Because of course there's been a huge struggle with ADHD and whatnot. So, I have to work through some things. And like structuring has been one of the ways that I'm learning to get through my days and be able to do the things that I both want to do and have to do. And so, yeah, using incomprehensible input, I have found channels that talk about the subject in Japanese, and I find that I really like them. And so, yeah, there may not be any sort of fast understanding or fast learning, but I do think that when you're using input, you are kind of steeping yourself in the language. You're immersing yourself into it. And immersing yourself, it kind of helps make it normal, which is what I think is important when it comes to language learning. Like you want to make the language feel like it's normal to you. Now, of course, there are other things that I have to do that need to be a little bit more structured. And part of that, of course, includes speaking because I'm an introvert and I barely speak English regularly every day. So the idea of incorporating Japanese is not frightening. I mean, because when I went to Japan, people asked me questions and I floundered my way through, but I did it. So it's not that I can't speak. I've had conversations throughout the years, and there's still a friend that I have in Japan that we have text conversations with each other. So I do use the language, but I do know that I need to get more comfortable with it. And I think for me, part of that process is doing a lot of listening, not because it helps me with speaking, but because it just helps me understand listening more. And it just makes the sounds of the language feel normal. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about when it comes to incomprehensible input. And yeah, the more I think about it, it probably will become part of my experiment. But I do think that it's more of a long term experiment. So it would be much more difficult to figure out the parameters and how it might work overall. But I do believe that there is a benefit because I've done it in the past. And yeah, that's kind of it. That's kind of all I had on the topic of incomprehensible input. Like I said, I still haven't fully figured out what I want to do for the experiment, but you can probably anticipate that some incomprehensible input is going to be part of it. And with that, I'm going to end the video. If you made it this far, thank you for watching or listening. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do everything that YouTube says that they like, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.